So today, for Word Wednesday, I would like to start a little mini-series about forgiveness. The Lord kind of this past couple weeks has really been touching on forgiveness in my heart, but He's just given me so much information that I want to make it into little series because I don't want it to be skimmed or anything left out because of time. So the first part that I'm going to do is about identifying who the real enemy is and taking our time to really know who he is and just the importance of it. But this one in particular, I planned on writing them all out and doing thorough, reading over so I wouldn't have to look at my notes. But for some reason with this one, I didn't even want to keep writing. It was just so important. I felt like the Lord put such just importance over what He was speaking to me through this that I just wanted to dive in and just kind of look off my notes just to remind me and make sure that I hit everything. But the first part that the Lord just really showed me was, okay, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, okay, but against rulers, principalities, the kingdoms of darkness, those who rule over the spiritual places. That is who we're fighting against. We oftentimes think our spouse, our friends, our coworkers, our family, that they are the enemy, but we don't take the time to take a step back and ask God for perspective on the situation so that we can correctly fight the battles that are in front of us. One of the things that I was talking about with my mom actually the other day was just about how the enemy is so conniving. The enemy is very deceitful, and one of his tactics is that he will do something with this hand while really he's doing something with this, like a magic trick. When they try to get your attention over here, while really they do a side of the hand over here. We don't realize that when we're suffering at the hand of man, really it's the enemy who has laid his tactics out so carefully and so perfectly that led up to this person hurting us. He worked through their sinful nature, their flesh. He worked through very well thought and laid out plans that took time. He put effort and time into it. You don't tear down a city in one day. And the enemy knows that, but he also knows how to work undetected unless you know what you're going against. If you don't know the tactics of the enemy, if you're not knowledgeable about the spiritual realm and things of that nature, he's going to get you. He's going to deceive you and he's going to lie, and you're not even going to know what hit you. So oftentimes, like the first things, we have to take a step back and remember, okay, when we're suffering at the hand of man, the enemy, all he is suffering. That's all he wants to cause us. And so when we're suffering at the hand of man, we have to take a step back and understand that Satan and his dark powers, they are what is behind it. They are behind the pain. They are behind the bitterness. They are behind the resentment. And if you let that pain fester in your heart and get in there, it's going to grow like wildfire and you're never even going to know it. There are so many Christians out there who are walking around wounded and hurt and wondering why, we're not displaying the love of Christ. Because let me tell you, if Christians were living the way that they should be and displaying Christ's love the way that He would desire us to, so many more people would be saved. And I'm not even sitting here trying to condemn anyone for that, because my goodness, I'm the first to go out there and say that, I make mistakes and, I struggle with that as well. But it's taking a step back and understanding, okay, you know what? Take responsibility for our part. You know what? You can't change anybody else, but you are responsible for your part in it. So you know what? Your spouse and your friends can be treating you badly, or, they might not be displaying the love of God like, they should be, but that's not your problem. And when I say it's not your problem, I mean, you're not accountable for that. God didn't tell you you need to be the Holy Spirit in your husband's life. You need to be the Holy Spirit in your family member's life. Now, parents with children, yes, you're supposed to guide them, but at the end of the day, it's the Holy Spirit who needs to get in there and do the work that needs to be done. And we need to take a step back, and we need to allow the Holy Spirit to do that. Because when we want to sit there and take that justice, we need justice. We need them to know how they hurt us. No. That's not how it works. And when we take on that role of the Holy Spirit, you know, they're not going to see Christ's love. You know, it's easy. It's easy to give into the flesh. It's easy to get mad and angry and fight. It's hard to bite your tongue. It's hard to take a step back and say, you know what? I know that you're not my enemy. The enemy hates unity. My dad's doing this prayer and he's really studying about praying in one accord. And it really hit me because it just reminded me of how the Lord loves unity. The enemy hates it. He's out to destroy it. And we oftentimes fight our spouses, we fight our families, we fight these people who aren't the enemy because we're not knowledgeable. We're not doing our research. God's people perish because of lack of knowledge. People aren't saved because we're not acting like Christ. I like your Christ, but I don't like your people because they act nothing like your Christ. I don't know exactly who said that, but I will never forget that quote. Because we as Christians, we're walking around hurt with bitterness and resentment, and we're not able to display the love of Christ because there's blockage. And it's not able to flow through us. It's supposed to flow in us and through us. We are supposed to preach and we are supposed to show the love of Christ from the overflow and the abundance that we get from Christ. And if we're not getting it, how are we supposed to give it? How are we supposed to be able to freely pour it out to others when we aren't even being filled? You're trying to pour out from an empty jar. That doesn't work. And, you know, if we want to be victorious, we have to stop fighting battles that aren't winning battles. Your spouse, your family, like I keep saying, and I'll keep saying it over and over again, they're not the enemy. But you have to know who the enemy is, and you have to also know his tactics. Because he will deceive you. You will be deceived. If you don't know the tactics of the enemy, if you don't know his strategy, how do you expect to win? If you're not fighting the real battle and you're fighting a losing battle with your spouse or your family, you're using your energy that should be put towards the Lord and putting it on that. And so I just really want to encourage you to ask God for the spiritual wisdom and the discernment to know Satan's tactics. But not only ask, seek. Seek the knowledge. Seek what you need so that you can be ready and alert and active. And you are on guard. So the enemy who comes to seek and devour can't seek and devour you because you're already 10 steps ahead of him. You know his tactics. You're looking for his tactics in things that are happening around you that are trying to hurt you and steal your peace. The first thing that you should think when someone hurts you is, okay, hurt comes from the enemy. So, Lord, give me wisdom. Give me revelation on the situation. Give me your perspective. Give me your spiritual eyes so that I don't let bitterness and resentment fester in my heart. So I really want to encourage you with that you would know who the spiritual enemy is, know that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, principalities, and kingdoms of darkness. And how we fight that is prayer. Prayer is not the preparation for battle, it is the battle. And the enemy is out to destroy families, to destroy marriages, because that's how God's blessings are transcended and passed down through the generations, is through families and the covenant of marriage. That's how he passes his blessings. But it's also how the enemy can distort and use for curses. And we need to be spiritually mature and knowledgeable so that we can pass down blessings and not curses in our family from going forward. It starts with us. We are responsible for us. We are not responsible for the way people treat us. We are responsible for how we respond to them. And just making a decision to step back and give it to the Lord is going to be really huge. It's going to be the start of just huge transformation for not only your relationships, but displaying the love of God and your relationship with God. You're going to notice that you're going to have a bigger capacity to withhold the love of God. And then you're going to start seeing it pouring out of you and just flowing out of you. And it becomes easier and easier to bite your tongue when they say something hateful. It becomes easier to go straight to God versus dwelling and thinking about it and festering on it like the enemy wants. So I just really encourage you. I know I keep touching on other things, but it's just, this to me was so important. And I really just can't say enough how important prayer is, how important it is to remember that your spouse and your family and these people that are coming against you are not the enemy. And these people who are hurting you are not the enemy. And just really asking God to take that and to show you who the real enemy is. Next week, I think I'm going to really touch on the next one, I'm going to touch on forgiveness, how to really let it go, how to really give it to God, but what that does when you do that. The next couple I'm going to try not to make as long as this one, but it was just so... This one was just so important, and this one hit me harder than the rest, that I really wanted to not leave anything out, but emphasize just how powerful it was. So thank you so much for listening, and next week I'm going to do part 2.